Hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Here we focus on helping men and those with men in their lives solve some of life's complex challenges through understanding the practices of mindfulness and how they can help. Each episode is in an environment free of judgment and criticism, with a focus on authenticity and inner peace. Let's dig in.
And we open with another quote. I have written 11 books, but each time I think, they're going to find out now. I've been running a game on everyone, and they're going to find me out. That's Maya Angelou, one of the greatest American authors of all time, talking about her struggles with imposter syndrome. Welcome back to Men Talking Mindfulness. Thank you for being here. I'm Will, and I'm joined by my co-host over there in Colorado Springs, John McCaskill. And here we are with another episode where each week we take time to demystify an aspect of mindfulness and make it meaningful to you. In this episode, we're going to become more mindful of imposter syndrome, what it is, who experiences it, ways to overcome it. We're going to talk about our struggles with imposter syndrome. And today is August 31st. And we're going live, a little out of cycle. This is to allow us to have a good time on Friday before Labor Day weekend. But right. if you're watching this during our regular scheduled time, thank you for tuning in. Or if you're listening on podcast, thank you for tuning in there as well. And hey, John, good to be back. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
You have an announcement for us, and don't sound like an imposter.
I know that's what I'm going to be thinking about all through the whole show.
Don't fuck it up. I'm just
One of my first public speaking gigs, like big public keynote speeches. Wow, now I'm fumbling all over myself already.
Sorry to make you nervous.
I stood up, and as I got introduced, the guy, and Karen Chartan can attest to this because she was there. The guy who introduced me, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, and here's John. Now don't fuck it up. That's what he said. Like right in front of this big group of 150 people, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty good. But hey, yeah, as far as announcements, we're about 2 weeks away, a little over 2 weeks actually today on August 31st. But on Friday when this airs again, and by the time you guys listen to it on podcast, we're going to be within 2 weeks for our Men Talking Mindfulness and Movement RX Mindfulness Adventure Retreat. And I got to put this out. I don't know that we put it out as many times as we probably should have. This retreat is not just for men. It's for anyone 18 and older who are wanting to find ways to find peace, fulfillment, fun, and basically just get in touch with themselves and be part of a community. And this retreat is September 16th through the 19th in Durango, Colorado. It is a 4-day retreat or 3.5-day retreat, but it's also followed by a 4-week post-retreat integration program. And that's to help you get the most out of the experience, allowing you to live more mindfully instead of just being an idea. If you want to know more about that, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com/retreat. And I will put that here in the ticker. So check that out, mentalkingmindfulness.com/retreat. That said, for those of you who have never joined us before, we kick the show off with a meditation or a grounding practice, as we call it. We wrap the show up with a similar grounding practice, kind of bookend the show with a practice just to get our minds right. And because we're talking about imposter syndrome, something that both Will and I have experienced and continue to experience, and that so many of us, those in the audience, have experienced, that's what we're kind of going to tie it into is one, to calm us down and let us know, hey, you know what? We are in the right place. We belong here, right now. We are not imposters. And then two, to kind of just get us settled because we think we are imposters. Even coming into this show, right? Will and I were talking right before we kicked it off. Hey, we're nervous about this episode because we're going to be raw and very vulnerable. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic, which, you know what? I also got to make another announcement. That shirt that Will is wearing.
Oh, I was going to say so. Thank you.
Shirt. Check it out. It's a Superman MTM shirt with the Superman colors and our standard slogan, raw, uncut, and unapologetic on the back. So excited to have that shirt out in the wild. And we are going to open up sometime here in the near future, a long time standing, permanently open merch store online. Our executive assistant, Lindsay, is working hard to get that set up. But once we do, we'll make sure we announce that. All right. Now that all said, let's get into that opening practice. Whatever is safe and comfortable for you, go ahead and get into that position. Closing your eyes is comfortable. Closing your eyes is safe. Invite you to do that. Otherwise, just soften your gaze. Obviously, if you're driving, you don't want to soften your gaze. Keep focused there. But obviously, again, whatever is safe and comfortable. And let's bring our attention to our breath. Not forcing anything, but just being aware of each physical attribute of your breath. Notice how the inhalation expands your chest and belly, and the exhalation does the opposite. Notice where the air is entering your body and how that feels, and where it is leaving and how that feels. Notice how the air, how it is as it enters your body. Is it cool, dry? And how the air is as it exits your body. Maybe a little bit warmer. And now leaving the breath and the focus on the breath behind. Let's go into our thoughts, into our mind and our hearts. And notice the stories that we tell ourselves throughout our day, positive and negative. And know that many of these negative stories are not true. Many more of the positive stories are. We are often more capable than we think we are. We surround ourselves with people we feel we do not belong around, when we in fact do. We are stronger than we give ourselves credit for, smarter, braver, and more capable. And it is in saying and truly embracing statements like these that we overcome the imposter syndrome. That's what we're here to do today. We'll close with 3 deep breaths together. Begin by breathing out as much air as you can. Deep breath in. Holding at the top. And release. Deep breath in. Hold. And breathe out, letting those negative stories go on that exhalation. And on this breath in, breathe in confidence, courage, and hold it. And release. Now start to bring some movement in your body, maybe moving your head around, your shoulders, your hands, your arms. Get some movement, that micro movement into your body. And here we are to talk about imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, that's my nervous voice right there, or whatever, about imposter syndrome. Okay, so where do you want to begin, John?
Well, let's define it. I know that
All
you
right.
are big on definitions,
Well,
so let's start there.
Let's get the baseline. Okay, this is some Wikipedia. We always go to Wiki, go to a very common source. for this. So it says imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon or imposterism. I kind of like that one. Is a psychological occurrence in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments and has persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Despite external evidence of their competence, those experiencing this phenomenon do not believe they deserve their success or luck, or they may think that they are deceiving others because they feel as if they are not intelligent as they outwardly portray themselves to be. Imposter syndrome can stem from and result in strained personal relationships and can hinder individuals from achieving their full potential in their field of interest. That's imposter syndrome defined right there, John. I highlighted in our notes here, about the doubt, right? About persistent internal fear of being exposed as a fraud. We talked about fraud last week. Do not believe they deserve success or luck. And I even here but outwardly portray themselves to be, so that they don't feel like even that they're as intelligent as they outwardly portray to be. So a lot of like negative thoughts and feelings, and the feelings are making more thoughts, and the thoughts are creating more feelings. So it really is kind of a vicious cycle. This imposterism, imposter syndromes, or imposter phenomenon. But what comes up for you as I read that definition, John?
Well, I mean, it comes up as something I have definitely felt, and like I said at the beginning, continue to feel, as I'm sure many of us do. It is tied to what we discussed last week with fear and overcoming our fear. And a lot of that fear is, the fear of looking stupid, the fear of failure, the fear of being imperfect, and perfectionism. That feeds into this imposter syndrome. Hey, you do one tiny mistake and you suddenly start to, let your brain and your stories feed on that mistake. And you start thinking, you know what, I'm not good enough to be a part of this group. I'm not good enough to be here amongst all these superstars. I don't deserve to be here with, my friends, my colleagues, or sometimes even within your family. I know we have, imposter syndrome in multiple levels and multiple ways in our lives. And the parts of imposter syndrome, the signs of it, I'm going to bring up an image here if this works. Let's see. So the signs of imposter syndrome, and this is from verywellhealth.com, verywellhealth.com. If you're watching here, you're going to see this kind of image that show the signs of imposter syndrome, but over and above these and kind of tied to them, it's fearful they will be discovered to be a fraud, and we'll mention that in the in the definition. There's absolutely that fear. Even as I sit here as a podcaster right now, and we've done 90 something real legitimate episodes, I think, you know what, somebody's going to call me out as a fraud for being a podcaster. You don't deserve to be a podcaster. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's something that pops into my mind.
This whole fucking podcast is bullshit, John.
Yeah,
I'm just
right.
kidding.
Right.
It's like,
right. But I mean, there is that thought that, like, hey, does the podcast itself, does it deserve to be a podcast, a standalone product that's out there? Believing compliments and praise, or because the audience is being nice, or because your praise and your success was not earned. Feeling unworthy of success, feeling like it was luck, not talent, that got you there. A lot of the time, if I do have any kind of win, I'm like, oh, well, it was just good timing. I was in the right place at the right time. I don't give myself the credit as often as I should. I do try to, and a lot of this comes from being mindful. I do try to give myself that credit, but sometimes I fail at that. And then feeling anxious or depressed. Again, that's the opposite of mindfulness. That is you thinking about the future, anxiety or depression, thinking about the past. That's another piece of imposter syndrome. And then feeling undertrained or underprepared. Something that we do in the military and everywhere really, is we get promotions. And with those promotions, quite often we compare ourselves to the person formerly who had that position, and we think, you know what, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as that person, or I'm not as good as the person who is going to replace me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this role. I'm so used to this last position. There's a lot there. So feeling underprepared or undertrained, that's another piece of that imposter syndrome. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this image and kick it over to you, brother.
This imposter syndrome is a real challenge for me. Like I often say of the success that I've created, and just think of that statement, the success that I've created, and I think I need to own that, and I don't own it very often enough. I chalk a lot of the things I've done up to luck. I'm lucky to have this apartment. I'm lucky to get this teaching job. I'm lucky to meet you. I'm lucky to have this podcast. But if I go back and look at this, what I'm calling luck is, and I like to, what I've heard a long time ago, and I tell other people, and maybe I just need to listen to my own words sometimes, is luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Right.
And, I would have never met you, John, if I wasn't in the arena of mindfulness, if I wasn't putting the work out there, if I wasn't, doing the best I can, not just to help everybody, but also I met, the person that introduced us, Scott Tucker, on an all men's retreat, and I just, we hit it off. I just actually talked to Scott last week a little bit. He's doing well. He says hello. And, if I didn't keep that relationship going, and just put out good vibes when I met him and stuff like that, and be a positive person, and he might've just thought I was a complete, whatever, a fraud in that case, I guess, or just an asshole or something, and not never have make this introduction, and here we are 5 seasons into the show. I definitely get a little nervous every episode. I think just because I care so much about putting really good work out there in the world, and knowing that, everything that's coming out of my mouth is going to be recorded and going to be put out there. And it's really, all this is really humbling in a lot of ways. And it's I don't know, it's been hard. I mean, me as a teacher here in the city, being a tall dude here in the city, and having, been teaching so much yoga, and I still feel like I have so much to learn in this space of mindfulness and yoga and meditation. And I do a lot of work as far as training and learning, and trying to be a better teacher and be a better practitioner. And I really consider myself a student first, all this work. But still, when I have a great kick-ass class, I just feel like, oh, well, that's that, I don't understand where it comes from sometimes. And where people are like, oh, that was great. And sometimes I feel like I'm I've kind of phoned it in, because during the class, I'm literally living imposter syndrome, in the sense of I'm questioning myself as I'm teaching a class. I mean, that's changed a lot over, the last several years, where I don't really do that. That internal dialogue and my outward projection, they don't match.
Right. Sure.
And then when people are like, oh my God, thank you, that was great, it's exactly what I needed. Or I was just like, oh fuck, I was a mess on the inside. So I don't know what you're talking about. And that feel of being a fraud comes up. But
yeah, I mean, you said you don't know where it comes from. And I think a lot of it comes from what we work in mindfulness to overcome all the time, is that negativity bias. That negativity bias is like, hey, I think continually that something bad is going to happen. It's a defense mechanism. And if I convince myself that I'm not good enough, that I'm a fraud, and then somebody says, hey, you're not good enough, or hey, you are a fraud, then in your mind, you've already defended yourself against that. You're like, oh, well, I knew it. You guys are on to me, but hey, I knew it all along. It was just a matter of time. Whereas the opposite of that is walking around with confidence, confidence, not cockiness. And we want to talk about that. You walk around with this confidence, you're not defending yourself against that. So you feel almost, it's counterintuitive. You feel because you're being confident that you're actually opening yourself up to ridicule, to failure, to being called out as a fraud. So it's really kind of backwards. So by having the imposter syndrome, we're defending ourselves from that hurt, that pain that may come from being
Right.
called out for it, for being that imposter.
It's almost like a self-judgment pattern too for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like, you know, I'm judging myself and like, you know, analyzing, you know, in the sense of like, say for, you know, yoga class, oh, is that sequence, did it flow well? So I kind of like have these little check marks in my mind, like, oh, did it flow well? Was it, you know, seamless? Was it, you know, was I, you know, grounded when I was saying this or saying that? Or, and it's just like, yeah, there's just, for me, it's like, I guess, what do they say? It's a paralysis analysis or
Analysis paralysis. Yeah.
analysis paralysis, right? And yeah, it's tough. I'm kind of, you know, I'm keep hesitating in this topic because it like I'm trying to find at the same time that we're talking about this and trying to help our audience. I'm trying to selfishly help myself and see if I can overcome this, you know,
I get
or
it.
at least walk away with something. So I'm going to go back and listen to our podcast and
There you
see
go.
how I fucked up, right? You know, I never want to judge myself. And then also it's like, you know, take some of our advice and it was
Right.
really interesting preparing for this, but yeah, keep going,
Well,
John.
yeah, I mean, let's talk about that cycle. A lot of what you just said there is driven by a cycle. And I'm again going to attempt to share another image here. This is the imposter syndrome cycle. And this is from the dataincubator.com, the dataincubator.com.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it says, you know, start a new project or task, or maybe get a promotion. So that's the very top of your cycle. It spins around to the right, anxiety, procrastination, or over preparation. We've all been there, right? We've been promoted, we've gotten a new job, and you suddenly have this anxiety in your gut. Hey, I'm not good enough. So now I'm either going to over prepare or I'm just going to put everything off until later. That's the procrastination piece. All right. So continuing around the wheel, now we go to project completion, a brief relief, and sense of accomplishment. Okay. We've all been there too. So we've gotten this big, hairy, we talked about it last week, the eat your frog, eat that frog first, that really hairy, scary project that you have. Well, you overcome that project, you're done. You get this really brief sense of relief and then that sense of accomplishment. Ooh, all right, I did it. But then you take that relief and sense of accomplishment and you start rationalizing. Well, I didn't do it. The team did it. Or I didn't do it because of my preparation or because of my experience or because of my knowledge. I was lucky. All right. I was lucky. And then somebody else could have or would have done a better job. And then that goes into that increasing self-doubt, anxiety, feeling like a fraud. And then at that point, just at that point, a new project or task is given to you and you go through this cycle over and over. And it's hurtful, it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it's scary. So that's the cycle that we can get into if we're not careful. And we've got to put something into that cycle to keep us from going down, you know, this dangerous spiral.
I think that part of that, what to put in, because if you just bring that back up really quick, John, you know, the words that, no, don't worry. That's okay. That's okay. I remember. So it's like, you know, it's all beliefs, right? Well, it's feelings and beliefs, right? It's self-doubt, right? They mentioned anxiety twice in that circle. You know, the feeling of being like less than, you know, the whole idea of like being lucky, and, you know, they even talk about procrastination here. And John, if you you know if you start meditating out there, right, it'll help you to just be more aware of it. A lot of these feelings and a lot of that negativity bias that you mentioned earlier, and you have an opportunity in your meditation to just create a new relationship and distance it, objectify those feelings, and you know, I think you did the same meditation this morning, John, through our My Steady My stream. My stream was like that affirmation, you know, so you can use this time that you carved out to meditate, to counteract this imposter syndrome and these feelings, really, these feelings and these doubts and these constructs in the mind. And the only way that this cycle is ever going to stop is if you are proactive and really, meditation will definitely help, but maybe you need to, and I say this like, talking to myself in some ways, is just to write down. I'm a big journaler, and just to write down with these thoughts and then put them on the wall or something like that. And then you maybe have a list in the bottom of like the affirmations to, that are kind of the antithesis of, those negative imposter syndrome thoughts that you have. So, yeah.
Yeah, it always makes me think of Stuart Smalley. And if you don't know who Stuart Smalley is, he was the guy on Saturday Night Live who would stare at himself in the mirror. I've probably used this in the past on this podcast, but he stares at himself in the mirror, and his positive affirmations are, "I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me." And obviously that's ridiculous on the show, but there's value in those positive affirmations, saying something to yourself like, hey, I am smart enough to be here, whether that's in front of a mirror or whether it's just in your mind as you're surrounded by all these other high performing individuals. You got to understand, well, why are you surrounded by such high performing individuals? Probably because you are one. So it's there's a good chance that you are a high performing individual if you're surrounded by high performing individuals. So convince yourself of that.
It makes me feel better, John. But sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
there you go. There you go. You are surrounded because you are one, Will. You are one.
Thanks, John. You too.
So,
You too.
I put there in the ticker, if you're watching live or later, we would love to hear from you about where and when you have experienced imposter syndrome, or maybe how you have addressed it, how you've worked to overcome it. Tell us that in the comments. We'd love to hear that. And while we wait, if anyone is watching live, we'll wait for those comments to pop up. But we figured maybe we would help you to feel okay about imposter syndrome by telling you about some folks who you all know well and who are extremely accomplished people who have also fought with this, or continue to fight with it. And I'll kick it off with a couple, and then I'll turn it over to you, Will.
Yeah, man.
So, David Bowie, we all know him from back in the days with his music. And his quote here is, "I had enormous self-image problems and very low self-esteem, which I hid behind obsessive writing and performing. I was driven to get through life quickly. I really felt so utterly inadequate. I thought the work was the only thing of value." How sad is that? That you're trying to get through life quickly just so you can be done with the pain, right? So you can be done with that feeling of inadequacy. And that's what he was feeling, even though he was one of the most accomplished singers of recent, I guess, last 50 years.
He's huge.
I mean, he's just absolutely huge. Then another superstar athlete.
Well, let me just comment on David Bowie really quick.
Please.
Like, look at how much he had changed his image. He right here, I had enormous self-image problems and very low self-esteem. And, he had this massive platform that he got to really explore and express and just really go, it almost seems like, his struggles with imposter syndrome drove him to be the artist that he is, and to express himself in a way that is very unique, and not completely unique, but very unique in I guess he was like, is that like the 80s? Nah, when was David? But what would he be considered? I mean, he was almost his own category, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Lindsay can help. But he was like not a punk rocker, not like a Steven Kotler kind of punk rocker. I think, right? I love that he was a punk rocker, fucking Kotler. Yeah. And but yeah, he just had his own sound, his own vibe. And I think in 2015, 16 or something like that, a massive museum or what do they call it? Installation here in the city to honor him and his music. I mean, and people flocked because he was just such a unique and incredible performer for sure. But yeah, he talks about being inadequate here.
Right. And, so many of these folks, again, are so well accomplished. Well, we are too. We are well accomplished, but we're also telling ourselves these negative stories, negative narratives. So the next one is Serena Williams, a superstar tennis player. And Serena admitted to always copying her older sister, Venus.
Mm.
In an interview with Oprah, she said, there were two Venus Williamses in our family. It was crazy. At restaurants, my parents would make me order first. But once Venus ordered, I would change my mind. It was tough for me to stop being Venus and to become the person I am. And that's Serena Williams. I mean, superstar, super successful, and has gone on to, superstardom. But she still struggled with it. And that's in the athletic realm. On the entrepreneurial side, the CEO side, that's one. So I do some executive coaching, and I talk with CEOs, and a lot of them tell me, hey, I'm struggling with not feeling like I can run this company. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not good enough. And one of the top CEOs in the country, Howard Schultz, Starbucks, admitted to feeling undeserving and insecure. And in an interview with the New York Times, he said, very few people, whether you've been in that job before or not, get into the seat and believe today that they are now qualified to be the CEO. They're not going to tell you that, but it is true. It is true. And yes, I haven't been a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, but I've been the executive officer of SEAL commands, and I've done operations officer positions, and I've gotten these different promotions. And every single time I got promoted and got into a new position, I felt, oh man, I'm not good enough to be here. I'm not smart enough to be here. They are going to see me as a fraud, and I'm going to fake it until I make it, or I'm going to fake it until they call me out on it. And there's, even times when I'm done with that position, when I was done with the executive officer and operations officer position, when I was done with those positions, I was like, whew, all right, I made it, and nobody noticed I was faking it the whole time. When in fact, I wasn't faking it. I was actually learning the ropes as I was going along, felt that I actually did have control, and I got over it. All right. So that's the CEO or leadership position.
No, I like what you're saying there, John. And it's like, is it, you say faking it, but it's like you're doing the best you can with the experience that you have, with the tools that you have at your disposal. I mean, just like any CEO, I mean, that's a massive responsibility to step into, especially a large role like Starbucks, but also for yourself. I mean, you're in charge of the lives of I don't know, hundreds of people potentially, or something like that, and you're in charge of making everything run smoothly and dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And plus, if something does go wrong, it's your head that's kind of on the chopping block. And I think one thing when you mentioned Serena Williams, I think imposter syndrome, it could be helpful in some ways because it brings humility, because if Serena Williams, I mean, she's the most accomplished female athlete of all times, like of ever. I mean, she's, I don't know how many Grand Slams she's won and titles that she won, but it's like, it's in the, I don't know, 20 or almost 30, I think, at this point. And this is actually right now, yesterday she played in her last, I mean, not her last, this is her last US Open. She won yesterday, apparently. But there is I think there is a benefit a little bit about, having questioning your skills so you can actually prepare and, add humility and keep showing up at the tennis court and just finding more skill within. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
Should I go to Natalie Portman or anything you want to mention?
No, I think you covered some great bases there. Let's go with some more.
So Natalie Portman, in her 2015 Harvard commencement speech, Portman said, quote, "Today, I feel much like I did when I came to Harvard Harvard Yard as a freshman in 1999. I felt like there had been some mistake, that I wasn't smart enough to be in this company, and that every time I opened my mouth, I would have to prove that I wasn't just a dumb actress." There you go. That's Natalie Portman talking about her early days at Harvard.
Who's this Natalie Portman person? Who is that?
She's a giant star, man. I've had such a crush on her over the years. Yeah. Oh my God, a totally not Natalie Portman crush. Even Tom Hanks, he says, no matter what we've done, there comes a point where you think, how did I get here? When when are they going to discover that I am in fact a fraud and take everything away from me? I mean, that's Tom Hanks, which is like, could you have a better career than him? Um, and
One of my
Richard
favorites
Branson,
of all
yeah,
time, man.
he's fucking great, man. And Richard Branson says, famously quotes, if someone offers you an amazing opportunity, and if you're not sure you can do it, say yes, then learn how to do it later. And, I mean, I'm not surprised that comes from Richard Branson, considering what he's done, and really, I think putting I love that whole idea of saying yes instead of turning it down and saying no. Um, because I've had friends that work I'm thinking of a friend right now who works in the stunt industry, and he got a job like to drive like a motorcycle or something like that, and I think it was some sort of vehicle that he had to drive and be good at it, and he they knew him, so they gave him the work, and he took the job, and he had no idea what he was doing. So he immediately, went out and started working. He had like several weeks or more before production started, and he got really good at it. But I think just saying yes sometimes might be a way to counteract some of that imposter syndrome and stepping into the arena,
Yeah.
and it's never pretty, necessarily, and it shouldn't be. I don't think life is messy, very, very messy, and when you're trying new things, it's always going to be very messy, and I think it's important just to give yourself the grace to try new things, number one, but also to fail, yes, but also like, what results are you just keep putting yourself out there. We talked about this in the fear episode. Keep taking action, keep getting results, looking at that feedback, and then trying again and trying again and trying again. And this can be one way to definitely counteract some of that and strengthen those affirmations of who you want to be, right, and what your abilities are to do things. And it's just like, instead of living in your head, I mean, this imposter syndrome, it's a syndrome. It's like, it's in the mind, right, and not necessarily what the results or how you should feel about yourself based on the accomplishments that you have done.
Right.
So mhm.
Yeah, and I want to come back to, Richard Branson saying yes, and and then the flip side of that is saying no. Definitely there's a time you should say no and time you should say yes, but why are you saying no, right? Are you saying no out of fear? Are you saying no because you feel that you don't fit in? Are you saying no because that you feel you're going to be a failure or a fraud?
Mm.
If you're saying no for any of those reasons, then I think you need to say yes and then figure it out, right? Figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're saying no because you don't have time, because a lot of the time we, as in society, we do say yes to a lot of things. And this is kind of a tangent, but I want to make sure I
Mm.
cover this. We say yes to a lot of things, and in saying yes to everything, we're essentially saying no to everything because we don't have that kind of time. We don't have that
Mm.
kind of energy.
Mm.
We don't have the ability to put in the effort that we need to do everything full justice, right? So, I think there comes a time when you should say yes and no, but you just have to ask yourself why you're saying it. Why are you saying
Mm.
yes? Why are you saying no? Is it
Mm.
out of ego? Is it out of fear? Is it out of you know uh, imposter syndrome? So
Mm.
and now I don't think we're getting a whole lot of chat here. So let's go into
That's okay.
things
We're
that
off. We're off
yeah,
day, right?
we're off our regular day, so
Yeah.
I'm not too concerned about it. But where have we personally felt that imposter syndrome?
Mm.
Kick it over to you, Will, for anything, and then
Yeah.
and
Oh,
I'll
fuck.
wrap it up.
Of course. Yeah. I'll start, John. I'll definitely start. I got, I kind of, I touched on this earlier, and I'll just go a little bit deeper. And, maybe just all my imposterism started to rise as we put this topic together. But like I wrote here in notes, like I feel it way too often. And one thing, as we're understanding and on peeling away the onion and getting to the core of imposter syndrome, I've read that people that have talent in something and are gift in some ways, that it's and things that are just kind of easy for them. It's been easy for me to teach. I make friends very easily, and people kind of like tend to like who I am and like what I'm doing, and instead of, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's some sort of deep thing in our DNA or something like that, or comes from family or something like that. Like there's got to be, in order to get to a like accomplished result, or to yield something that, is actually enjoyed by other people. Like it has to be hard, or it has to be really, difficult to do. And you have to like put in, all this time and this and that. And so I've definitely felt, because of, some of my gifts as a teacher or something like that, that like I don't deserve to be a teacher. I don't deserve to be in that class, or I don't deserve to be in this podcast, or I'll be feeling that in a retreat, John, to be honest with you, in some ways. Like, and I live with it way too much, to be honest with you. Also, one of the characteristics of imposter syndrome, and I'm trying to get better at this, is when you receive praise, for something that you've done. And, that's something that I've been working on for a long time. When people say, hey, that was a great class, or I was interviewed on another podcast yesterday, and this guy's like, he goes, yeah, I'm a real fan of the show. And I was like, are you fucking crazy? Like, why would you be a fan of the show? Like, why do you why you want to why do you like, me? Like, why you even ask me to do this podcast interview? And at the same time, like, hey, I'm excited. Like, I really can help, and so there's like, there's two kind of voices on the inside that are going on within me, as I continually go down this path of trying to bring more, with us, John, that, with Men Talking Mindfulness and the work I'm doing here in the city, just trying to, create more emotional intelligence and bring more peace into the world. And it's definitely a struggle at times. And, even here on the show, like I said, we dive deep on certain topics, and, I mean, I think even when we have bigger guests, like we've had some really big guests in the show, and I prepare and read and do the books, and, and I'm like, oh, I don't belong in the company of these men, and then part of me is like, no, fuck that. I mean, I totally do. You know what I mean?
Right
I just haven't, written
You do.
10 books yet. Yeah. Thank you. And
Right.
like, and this show has given me a lot of confidence, in the sense of like, I do belong in these places, because I can hold a conversation. I can ask great questions. Like, we just have such a wonderful flow, and you just charge me and give me a tremendous amount of confidence, inspire me to show up bigger, and prepared, and willing to take more risks. So, I mean, there's this, I mean, and I don't know if that imposter syndrome keeps driving me to work a little bit harder. It does. I think it provides a certain amount of humility, which at times I definitely need, because, I grew up, maybe I've been very arrogant, until maybe the last like 10 years or 15 years or something like that. And I was going to say something else, but yes, but also it's like again, it's I'm kind of happy it's there, but it does definitely. It makes me feel alone sometimes, and isolates me. And, instead of saying yes to an opportunity, or yes to, go out or something like that, sometimes I'll just sit with my imposterism, or sit, alone with my imposterism sometimes. So, yeah. So how about yourself, my brother?
Well,
Anything you want to kind of double back on that?
yeah. Well, you said you experience this way too often, and I think
Yeah.
that's the imposter syndrome itself is tough to experience, and then beating yourself up for experiencing that is another kind of step on yourself. You're like,
I'm
oh man,
doubly fucked
I'm an
up.
imposter, and I'm an imposter. Oh shit, I feel like I'm an imposter, and then you just get down this negative spiral, right?
Oh yeah, thanks.
So
Yeah,
you just yeah, I think you're great, Will, and
Thanks,
you're
John.
you on this show, you do belong amongst the guests that we've had. You and I belong shoulder to shoulder on this, but I also love the audience, right? The audience does in fact come here to share their stories, or to learn from us, or learn from our guests. And you, as our audience, help us to not feel as though we're imposters. So thank you to you all for listening, for watching. As far as my personal experience with imposter syndrome, I think a lot of it comes from the kind of the image that I imagine myself as, or that I should be, quote unquote, should be, versus what I am. And that started very early as a as a son, versus the image of what a son should be. The son should be this perfect little boy who does everything right, and I was falling short from that. And this is not because of my parents. My parents are phenomenal parents. It's just what kind of I imagined myself to be, or what I should be, quote unquote, should. And that I was never meeting that. Fast forward, from my very younger years as a son. Obviously, I'm still a son, but fast forward a few years to when I'm running track and cross country. I was on a very successful team. I was, one of the middle of the pack guys, and I thought, you know what, I don't belong on this team. The rest of the guys are really good, and I'm just kind of middle of the pack. So I felt it there. That was carried further at the Naval Academy. So I graduated high school, enlisted in the Navy, took a year off, quote unquote. I was enlisted for a year, and then I went to the Naval Academy. And when I got there, it had been a year since I'd done any calculus, since I'd done any chemistry, since I'd really done any really hard studying. And suddenly I was overwhelmed with these academia, and I was falling behind. And I convinced myself that I did not belong there. That I didn't deserve to be amongst those other folks. It was that proverbial, big fish in a small pond back in my hometown, and now I'm at the Naval Academy, and now I'm a small fish in this massive pond in the ocean, right? I'm, surrounded by sharks. So I definitely felt it there. I felt it through the SEAL teams, as I told you before. As I got promoted, I felt that I didn't know the stuff good enough. I didn't know that position good enough. The person that was there before me was better than me. And Lindsay shared the Peter Principle with us before we got started. The Peter Principle is a concept in management developed by Lawrence J. Peter, which observes that people in a hierarchy tend to rise to a level of respective incompetence. So basically, employees are promoted based on their success in their previous job until they reach a level at which they are no longer competent. And as skills in one job do not necessarily translate to another. So, you come in as a salesman, right? You come in as a salesman, you get promoted to a manager, then you get promoted to a product manager, then you get promoted to district regional assistant to the regional manager kind of thing. And before you know it, you're suddenly doing things that you never signed up to do. So that's kind of the flip side of the imposter syndrome, but it's an important one to be aware of. As far as continued kind of ways that I feel it as an entrepreneur, I'm like, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing as an entrepreneur. And at least that's what I tell myself. And I feel that I'm missing the mark every day. And that makes me feel bad about what I'm doing as an entrepreneur. Hey, you know what? I'm not doing it right. Father, as a husband, am I missing the mark there? I'm not surrounded by a whole lot of other fathers and husbands in my home. I'm the only father and husband in my home, but there's still that image of what a perfect father or what a perfect husband should be. And a lot of that's driven by social media, right? If I think
you have an example?
I think, the social media writ large, if you're watching a show and you see this perfectly happy family sitting around a perfectly set table, saying grace, having their dinner every night together, you're like, oh man, I've got 3 kids and we never have dinner together. It's because we're, they're young kids, and it's complete chaos in my house, as you've seen. But it's I am doing the best I can, and I think that's the thing we need to tell ourselves more often, is that we are doing the best that we can, and we shouldn't compare ourselves to an image of what perfection looks like. We shouldn't compare ourselves to social media. We shouldn't compare ourselves even to our best friend right next to us. You and I, shouldn't compare ourselves to one another. But that's what we're guilty of doing as humans, is continually comparing yourselves to either an image or another person. But coming back to the Stuart Smalley, we've got to tell ourselves that we are good enough. We are smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Yeah, and that good enough is a good is a good phrase. I'm good enough. I'm doing the best I can. And I think that positive self-talk, those affirmations, I think are really important to kind of counteract
For
a lot of
sure.
this imposter syndrome. Should we, we have some steps here to overcome, or
Yeah.
anything. I don't think you can have any more comments or anything anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to beat a dead horse. And hey, imposter syndrome is feeling that you're not good enough. Got it. And we
Yeah,
went
yeah.
through a whole lot of
No,
different
hey, I mean,
examples, but
it's not,
that's the conversation. That's what we're here to talk about.
yeah, fuck yeah.
But let's talk about overcoming it. Let's talk about that. We pulled up that one cycle earlier from the dataincubator.com, and they have a list of 6 things to do to overcome the imposter syndrome. Now, these are not the only 6. They're not in any particular order. And Will and I will throw in some things along the way that we feel have also helped us or continue to help us. It's not like they've helped us and we're suddenly over imposter syndrome. It's a continual fight. I mean, literally in this episode, we're battling it right now as we're talking, right? Because we feel that, hey, what we did is not good enough. We didn't prepare well enough. Blah blah blah. It's
Right.
it's a negative story that we're
Negative.
telling
Yeah,
ourselves, right?
yeah. Just a story.
So, yeah, it is just that. It's just a story. So, step 1, focus on the facts. Imposter syndrome makes you believe you aren't qualified for your position. However, these emotions are frequently founded on fear rather than the facts. And separating your feelings from the facts is the most effective strategy to combat imposter syndrome. Now, what does that look like, right? So, I've got training to support my getting promoted to this position. I've got, my degree. I've got, X, Y, and Z. If you can look at those facts and say, why did I get promoted? And not let the imposter syndrome, the negative story come in. Why did I get promoted? It's not based on luck. I got promoted because I put in the effort. I have the training. I've demonstrated great past performance, kind of a track record of positive performance. That's why I got promoted. That's the facts. If you focus on those facts, you can kind of overcome that belief that you're not good enough or that you only got there because of luck. That's one of the steps. Step number 1.
Yeah, I have. That brings up. We have, I think it's September 13th, where I'm doing an event with My Steady Mind and talking about like stillness. And I'm getting really nervous, and and again, that imposter syndrome is waking up. It's like, oh my God, am I over my head and this and that, and but then just to qualify this, focus on the facts. It's like, well, I've been meditating since 2007. I've done multiple vipassanas now. I've gained a lot of wisdom and insight by putting all this time in, like thousands and thousands of hours of meditation, and especially in the stillness method, or that's part of the vipassana technique. So it's like, yeah, I can do this. I just need to take the time and prepare.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one thing that helps me overcome this imposter syndrome is sitting down and doing the work, and putting in the good work. And
Right.
So I'll do the next one. So number 2, acknowledge, validate, and let go. We've talked about focusing on the facts, but that doesn't mean your feelings aren't valid. Combating imposter syndrome isn't about ignoring your emotions. Rather, that while feelings aren't important, they are just feelings and don't necessarily reflect reality. Feeling unqualified doesn't mean you actually are. The best method to combat this feeling is to acknowledge it, to acknowledge that you're feeling inadequate, and validate it that it's okay, and then let go of those feelings. And we talked a little earlier, I think this is what meditation is going to help you do. This is what, if you don't have time or haven't created the time in order to self-reflect, whether that's meditation, whether it's journaling, whether it's, or even just, we're talking to a mentor can be very helpful here, or a coach or something like that about these feelings of inadequacy. Then you're going to it's going to be tough to, number 1, identify imposter syndrome, and number 2, to do anything about it because you haven't, objectified. You haven't taken the moment of like, oh, wait. Because some people still think, John, that they are their thoughts, all their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
They are all their feelings. And if, and you're just going to be in that constant, incredibly destructive and roller coaster of life. Like, oh my God. I mean, it already is a roller coaster, but it's like, but I try to just, instead of, sometimes when I teach, it's like, instead of, are you the river, of life that's always flowing, right? Or are you building a canoe, right? And being the best paddler that you can, and that's all you can do. You don't know what life, or you don't know what the next, careen of the river is going to cause, or what if you're going to be in a class 1 or have, or a 4 rapid or a 5 or something like that. But what you can do is continue to prepare. And, the more that you take time to take on mindfulness practices, it's going to help you to create a stronger and more resilient boat, canoe, kayak, whatever, paddleboard, whatever kind of, sailboat, and also help you to navigate those waters more effectively. So because, the thoughts and the emotions are always going to be there, but it's about what you do with them or what you don't do with them that really makes the difference of how you're going to show up.
Right.
So that sounded pretty good, John. I think I knew what the fuck I was talking about. All right, there you go.
Make sure you go back and jot that down, man. It's good stuff. That could be a part of a book.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yep. That book that we have yet to
write.
Why have we not written that book? Because in the back of our minds, we don't feel that we deserve to have written the book.
That's a good. That's a really good point, John. No, I'm with you.
I know it for a fact. Every time I sit down to write a book, I'm like, who am I to write a book? But
God, totally.
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. So
you sound a little crazy, John, when you keep the third time you repeated Stuart Smalley.
Oh, man, for those who don't know what I'm looking at or talking about, look it up. You're gonna really appreciate it. Anyway, okay. So step number 3 is reframing your thoughts. There's a lot of power in thoughts. Our perspective on the world and ourselves can shape our reality both positively and negatively. Remember, imposter syndrome is the internalized feeling that you are not good enough. And if you reshape the way you think about yourself and set realistic goals, you'll begin to see yourself as deserving of your place. So coming back to those positions where you get promoted, you're like, oh man, I knew what I was doing in my last role, but now I've gotten promoted. I don't know what I'm doing. No, you know what? A lot of the time people don't expect you to know right off the bat, hey, day one that you take that position, what it is you're doing. You're going to learn. They're going to, most of the time, give you grace, give you a learning period to overcome that learning curve. Give yourself some great grace, reframe your thoughts, and then realize that you do deserve to be there, again, based on a past record of positive performance. Then you're going to reframe your thoughts. As you reframe your thoughts for this position, you're going to continue to reframe your thoughts throughout your life. And you're going to start to see that you do, in fact, deserve the success that you've attained. So start to reframe your thoughts. Yeah,
definitely. And that's a practice as well, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean, you have to get in touch with your thoughts too. So here, another one, share how you're feeling. This is easier said than done because imposter syndrome can feel very isolating. Reach out and talk to someone you trust and share your concerns. This can be a friend or a colleague. You may be surprised to see how many people relate to how you feel. Exactly. I'm sure a lot of people are like shaking their head as we continually roll through this episode. Yeah. We also recommend looking for a mentor. Find those in your field that you look up to, and that have an honest conversation with them about how they've improved their technical skills and soft skills and what challenges they have. You'll likely find that even those with lots of experience have been in those shoes and can provide you with the resources you need to improve. So again, connecting to other people, right? And they mentioned at the very top of this one, share your feelings. It could be, the feelings can keep you or make you feel isolated. I definitely live with that. But then I reach out. I mean, I'm so glad that we have the show. I have you, I have Teresa, I have Lindsay. She's part therapist, part executive assistant for me, right? Lindsay, she's shaking her head and be like, yep, that's me. But and it's like, but also I think, John, it's like when you'll gain confidence from sharing, and you know who you can share with. I mean, I'm not going to share with some person who has a very pejorative view of themselves and a negative outlook on the world. Like I want to play up, talk to people that, you aspire to become more like, or want to do more of their work, or just really admire them for how they continually show up in the world. So look for those people and talk to them. So
That's right. Be
yeah,
vulnerable with them, and
there you
as you
go.
are vulnerable, you'll probably start to see that a lot of other people are experiencing the same thing, and there's
Mm,
power in numbers, right?
yeah,
Power in numbers is knowing that you have the same feelings as some of the other folks that are out there
yeah.
and experiencing similar stuff.
And that
All right,
vulnerability, John, let me just, that's another,
yeah,
like, a big piece here, right? Like really being authentic, really, being vulnerable, and that speaks not from the mind, not from the stories, not trying to, like cover a story of, like, my positive vision in the world or something like that with over another story of your imposterism. But instead, like, speaking from, this is how I'm feeling, and this is like what it does for me, and speaking from the heart, and more of that heartfulness, instead of just, speaking from your mind and not trying to sound, whatever, weak or something like that,
right, right. Yeah. All right. So,
keep
taking that
going.
same thing one step
Hmm.
further, learning from your peers. So, we've touched on this already, that imposter syndrome is often driven by comparing yourself to others and thinking you're worse at your job than they are. Well, most of the time that's not true. And you are probably the master of something, and you can share information. So they can learn from you, you can learn from them. And in doing so, you're actually going to be vulnerable, like we mentioned before,
Hmm.
and you're going to grow from it. So learning from your peers, that's another step to overcoming that imposter syndrome, rather than viewing each person in your group, whether that's a group of friends, whether it's a group of colleagues or your family, rather than viewing them as competition. Think of them as someone that you can talk to, someone that you can lean on, someone that you can learn from. And if you do
Mm.
that, you're gonna help. It's gonna help you to overcome that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it can also help the people that you're working with form a stronger bond, a stronger team, and more effective.
Yeah,
And you might have to be that person willing to take that risk too. And if it's not accepted, then maybe you're not working with the right people.
right.
Because that could be a very toxic work environment if you're not able to be human beings, with other human beings, instead just like putting on the mask and being a
Mm.
robot, and always, like, trying to be continually rewarded for your intellectual whatever, or your creativity or something, right? um, Last one, he goes, it says, pat yourself on the back once in a while. Sometimes the best way to overcome imposter syndrome is to face it head on. Celebrate your accomplishments the next time you feel good about something you've done. Share your achievements with your coworkers or someone you trust outside of work, such as a friend or a family member. And if you believe that your life is shaped by your actions, choices, and decisions, you can take the responsibility for your achievements as well as your shortcomings. Recognize that your expertise and talents empowered you to achieve your goals, to complete any important project. And and I'm going to give an example in a bit. So keep a record of positive feedback and praise. The next time you hear that negative inner voice, this will help you to take the sting out of any criticism. Two things I'll
Hmm.
share, John, with this. So, as we research more of this, some woman, she says, I forget, I forget what article this was. This is through HubSpot. She goes, one of the best things I've ever done is create a folder in my personal Gmail account called Happy, where I've stored everything from my college acceptance email to praise from my colleagues and bosses. Whenever I need a lift, I open that Gmail folder and scroll through them.
I
Uh,
love
I,
it.
I had I had an opportunity years ago, John, before it closed down, to where, and I think it's going to come back again. Soul Camp was something that rocked for like 4 or 5 years here in New York. And I was asked to teach, and when I got that offer, I'm like, why are they asking me to teach, But I did go to teach, and there was like 400 or 500 people there. I mean, it was a
Whoa.
massive number of people, and it was an adult getaway camp over, like, I think it was like 4 nights and 3 days, and it was a lot of fun. And one thing that they did, and I still have it here somewhere, John, is they had at the end, or all week, they had a big bulletin board of every single person's name there, and they had is an envelope, and anytime anybody wanted to shower you with some praise, they would just write a little note out, and put it in your envelope. And I have it over here somewhere, John. Hold on, give me a sec.
Yeah.
Look at this. There it is. Hold
There it
on.
is.
Will Schneider. Look at this thing, right? This
I love
little,
it. I love
look
it,
at it,
man.
right? And and they've
Hold on. I'm going to put you on full screen so you can
oh
show that
shit.
a little bit.
Okay,
Come
yeah,
on.
look at
Show it.
this.
Show
Look
it
at this.
again. Up so
There it is.
there we go.
Good.
There.
There you go. Will Schneider. Right. Look at all these little things in here. So, they've, I don't know, someone said, what's this one? Will, you rocked the fitness 360 class. Oh, I did this like dance class, like adult fitness dance class. You've got moves. Great to meet you, Courtney. Right. I'm going to do one more. I don't know. Let me see. Oh, this is a bit longer. Okay. That's something else. There we go. Hey, Will, thank you for pushing me and supporting me at the same time in your badass yoga class. It was exactly what I needed to get into the ring and try something instead of sitting on the sidelines.
Nice.
I take that. I take that quote from Teddy Roosevelt, like getting in the arena quote, away from Soul Camp with me. It's definitely spoke to me. And whoosh, they used to go whoosh, 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 as a way to send love and praise to somebody else. And that was from someone named Valerie. So, and I have all these little things whenever I need. Will, I'm so proud of you and how you showed up 100% for everyone at Soul Camp. Love you, brother. And my boy Spencer
Awesome.
Jacobson. Love you, dude. He's a great guy. But anyway, so I have this little thing here, and if I'm feeling a little down in the dumps, I pull it out and I read what people had to say about me in the past. So, and
There you
and I
go.
read these things. This is like 2018, and I've grown so much as a teacher and so much as like, a leader in this community. And I'm like, oh fuck, dude. Like, if I was good then, I think I'm a little bit better now. So
Yeah. No doubt.
anyway, I thought
No doubt, man.
that's kind of fun,
I love it, man. I love it. So yeah, there you go. You're giving yourself a pat on the back and you're keeping a resource that, hey, when you do start to get down, you kind of reach into that resource and you say, hey, you know what? Somebody said something good about me. And I know that sounds trivial and sounds kind of childish, but it's something that we truly do need as human beings to help us kind of overcome this imposter syndrome and to help us develop that confidence. I have a thing on my phone. It just says reasons to be proud. And it goes all the way back to like high school speeches that I gave. And last week I spoke about the high school speech that I seriously over prepared for and then kind of flubbed.
Oh
But
yeah.
I did.
And the conclusion blank.
And the conclusion, yeah, exactly. I totally blanked. But then I did other high school speeches that I did well at. And I include that. I include my success in running. I include my acceptance into the Naval Academy and my graduation and everything else that I've done well. And every so often I bring that up and I'm like, okay, you know what? I do deserve this position. I do. I do deserve this promotion. I may not know what I'm doing now, but I will learn. Just like Richard Branson said. So you got to pat yourself on the back every once in a while. So there you go.
That's really good. Awesome, John. I think.
Well, let's wrap it up, man.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. All right. Well, thanks for listening, who's ever out there listening, and thanks for joining the live feed for those that are. And we'll just close with a few breaths, and we'll see where that takes us. So. Yeah, and hang with us for a little bit because it's nice to receive this information, about imposter syndrome, but then it's like, what do you do with it? And, how many times do we impress upon within this podcast, like creating space so you get to know your mind and your feelings so you can begin to change and do something about it instead of being enslaved by all these feelings and thoughts of imposter syndrome. So take this time with us and we'll do just a few breaths and go a little bit on the inside. So we can create that space. So eyes closed, you can exhale out your mouth, empty all the way out and feel your shoulders soften in your face and your body just relax. And take a big giant breath in. And exhale out. Good. In again. Exhale, exhale. Good. A few more. Really feel that big breath in. It has an incredible neurological effect on our body and our mind. Exhale, let it go out. We can't think our way into calm and peace, right? We need to work our way there. So big breath in again. Let it go out. And we'll do one more inhale. And let it go softly out. And after observing and absorbing all of this information today, what is one thing, just start one thing that you learned today that you can implement to start to be the badass that you are, instead of be the small little person that your imposter syndromes, tries to think that you are. What's one thing you can do? See that one thing. See yourself doing that one thing. Think of time when you can make that happen for yourself, whether it's getting in touch with the feelings or reframing or having an accomplishment board or something like that, or writing a letter to yourself and tell yourself how much of a badass you are and send it to yourself in the mail or something. And then make a promise to yourself in your mind, or maybe give yourself a little pinky swear to yourself if you want. And this is where the work begins, guys. Just take one breath to finish it out. Exhale. Big giant breath in. And let it go. Wow. Awesome. Come back. Thank you, John. I feel like I aired a lot of laundry with this. Like,
All right,
I really
man.
did. I really did.
It's nothing that is different from anyone else, right?
Yeah, very
we
true.
We are not imposters in having our imposter syndrome. We are not unique in that. Everyone has it in some level, in some form, at some time. So, give yourself some credit, give yourself a break, give yourself some grace.
As far as our praise too, give yourself some praise as well. Yeah, sorry, guys.
Definitely give yourself some praise, a pat on the back. So thank you for those who joined us live. Thank you for those who are joining during the quote unquote rerun that we're going to play on the Friday before Labor Day. And if you think that this is an episode that someone needs to hear, someone needs to see, please share it with them, friends, family, colleagues, whether that's in video format or in podcast format. We appreciate you. Give us a review if you would on Apple Podcasts. Give us that thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube and hit that bell so that you can be notified when we release new content. And we very much appreciate you as our listeners. And until next time, peace.
Peace. Hey, and join us on the retreat, y'all.
That's right. Join us on that retreat.
Have a great one.
Joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.